Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another class here at the Normalized Money Project, brought to you by Katie's House Foundation. We are on class number 9 of the Shared Housing Business Course for Real Estate Investors. My name is Kirsten Vanderjack. I'm the founder and CEO of Katie's House Foundation and also the Normalized Money Project. Let's go ahead and get started. Real quick, some housekeeping. I would like everyone to know that moving forward, the next 4 hours, we're going to cover things that might not be related to sober living. It can still be applied to sober living and detox, people coming out of detox or out of drug court, things of that nature. However, it's going to be more broad spectrum. So that way you can apply it to fixed income or student housing and, people who may be victims of human trafficking or veterans and things of that nature. So not everyone is going to have drugs and alcohol in their background. So our application right now is more broad because me personally as the founder and CEO, I didn't like that we were declining people. We were pushing people away. And so what we're going to talk about in the next 4 hours is fair housing and also making sure that you really think about who you want to serve from the get-go, so that way you have a lot of clarity in that. And if you want to serve a broad population, then I would recommend using this housing application that we're going to look at right now. And so this 1 hour is going to be spent on looking at our application, why we asked certain things. And then our property manager in Birmingham, Alabama, she couldn't be on with us today. However, I do have an important recording that I want you guys to listen to. I don't want it to be missed, which is why I'm pulling it into this class. So you guys can understand, what we tell people when they are calling Katie's House Foundation. These are the residents who are applying and also the social workers who might be inquiring. So we're speaking to 2 different audiences at Katie's House Foundation. I know that previously I had said for people to focus on one population, and I do suggest that you do that. However, when it comes to getting the residents, what you're going to find is that if you are only wanting, let's say you only want women, you only want to do women housing, then you can't put that on Craigslist, women only housing. You'll get flagged. You also cannot put that on Google and advertise that. You can just say that you have let's call it a house for, abused women. You could advertise that. And on Google, you probably won't get flagged, but you might not get grants if you're looking for grant funding. And so the next 4 hours, we're going to be talking about, the broader populations. Also, what happens when you have to provide a letter of residency, a warning, or exit somebody from your house. We're going to talk about how to find these residents, how to market to them, how to find houses, how to find grants and government contracts. And then we're going to talk about insurance and licensing and then JV opportunities. So with all of that in mind for the next 4 hours, again, we need to look at things more broadly. And if you are someone who's wanting to learn about sober living, all of this will still apply. However, if you want to learn about something not related to sober living, this will all apply as well, just like the last 4 hours did and everything does. But moving forward, it's going to be more on the business side of things and really getting your operation up and going, because you don't want to take out a loan for $25,000, go lease a house, and then not have any residents coming in. You need to make sure that you know how you are going to get those residents, how they are going to apply for your house, because it's not going to be on Airbnb. It's actually going to probably be on our new shelter registry that's launching in October 2023. So let's go ahead and get started right now. Let's look at the Katie's House Foundation application. And this is right on our website. I had said in our first couple classes that if you want to buy the code for our website, we use Shopify. And I'm enlarge this here, but anyhow, this is the top toolbar. And we just have our application right at the top of our homepage. It is a free application. Let me enlarge this again. And when we say free, we'll go over that in our FAQs for the application and move-in process. A lot of these things that we've built out are going to save you a lot of time and money. We've already tried many different things, and we have finally figured out just in the last several months what really works to drive in the residents and what price points are working and how to make things go faster for scalability. So it's really important that we share this with you, in my opinion. That way you guys can help your communities and reduce, homelessness and the housing insecure population, and of course, make a good profit while doing that and leaving a legacy for your kids or your family, which we are also going to get into later on why a nonprofit is important. So here, looking at the application, we asked them to get started by looking at our house rules, look at our good neighbor policy, read our FAQs. Most people, we have been finding they're taking a quick look, which is good. We're going to do the video here on this class. Now, once they've applied using this application at Katie's House Foundation, we actually will have a property manager contact them back. So our model is that each house has a property manager. A property manager, in our opinion, can manage 10 houses with 10 people inside each of the house. Now, they might be able to manage more, but we really want to make sure that they're doing a fantastic job managing the house president. And so once somebody applies on our website, then we send that application over to our property manager. That's your normal property manager who normally charges between 10 and 20% of the rents. And their job is to fill that house and to show the house. We like having property managers who are licensed individuals. Now, getting a licensed real estate agent property manager to handle your house, you're going to have to just interview several of them who service that area and who care about what you're doing. So keep that in mind. This application will hit your desk or whoever is handling your Shopify. And basically, right, you're going to ask, how did they hear about you? Because you're probably going to pay for marketing unless you get to a point where you don't need to pay for marketing because you're working directly with, the police department, and you have one really fantastic connection or maybe two fantastic connections with social services. And maybe that's just your source of business. Let's say that it's the drug court and you only do houses for drug court, in which case your application might look different than this. And I don't know that scalability is going to be something that you're going to be able to do because you're going to be really subject to that client. So you just have to, again, think about these things. But we are looking at doing a grant for $10,000 per month because we're a nonprofit with Google. And so we want to know if they heard about us through Google or Facebook or Craigslist or social services, right? We ask if they agree to the house rules. This is kind of like a preemptive house rules, not necessarily agreement because they're going to sign something, but we're setting them up for that because we want to make them understand that, right, this is the rules, you're agreeing. Obviously, you have their name, address, phone number. We do ask for a driver's license because you want to know if they can drive or they can't drive. That's going to be really important to the house location. So if you have a house, they should, of course, you're going to have a house, but if you have a house that is not near a bus stop, and people are not comfortable walking to the bus for whatever reason. Maybe they can't because they're in wheelchairs and right, their fixed income or their social security disability income and they can't, you're going to want to know if they have a driver's license. Some of them might still be able to drive, of course, or they're gonna just you're gonna need to know if basically they have a driver's license or a valid ID. And then we have here some categories, which we had looked at other different kinds of websites like roommates.com. And, Craigslist doesn't ask anything about roommates like this, but we want to know how they identify and if they are not okay with a co-ed housemate, not a roommate, a housemate. So at Katie's House Foundation, our houses are co-ed, even though most houses are not. Again, for me, it was because of fair housing. I want to be able to advertise across all mediums, which means we're not turning people down. That's really our niche versus yours might be men's housing, or family housing, or even it might be people who identify another way. And so there are niches that you will want to pick or not pick, but you need to be sure what it is and then ask for that business. And when they apply, are they telling you that's who they are? You have to be able to do this quickly, or your property manager has to be able to do this quickly, or you'll get burnt out on this and you'll not want to do it. I want you guys to do it. I want you to be successful and make very good money. Right now, we're looking at making $1,200 net on one of our little houses with 6 people. And that's a little house. We're able to help 6 people who otherwise would not have had housing. They would have been homeless or in a situation that was not good for them. And so most people, when they have a rental property, if they can clear $100 or $500 a month, that's amazing. I worked at Union Bank and Wells Fargo and other lenders for 20 years, and I looked at tax returns all day long. Most people take a loss on their rental properties, even if it's a short-term rental, unless it's something like at the Hyatt and it's a co-op and the Hyatt is literally driving you business, then you'll probably come out ahead. Airbnb, of course, is having some cities banned right now. So I think a lot of people are going to be pivoting away from Airbnb and going back to long-term rentals or even midterm rentals. And again, you're talking about clearing $100 or $500. I'm talking about clearing $1,200 with the same, 4-bedroom house. Anyway, this is why it's important. Think about having 100 of those houses and all the people that you can help. Let's keep going. So victim of domestic violence, college student, there's a whole bunch of students all over the country that are on wait list for housing. Military veteran, victim of human trafficking, aged out foster care, oftentimes living in the park. Once their foster parent can't get sponsorship for them and payment, then they normally have to exit that house. And where do they go? Well, if they don't have anywhere to go because they don't have a deposit because they weren't able to save up money like a lot of people, then they end up sleeping out on the streets or waiting in line for a shelter, which is inevitably almost always full. Somebody looking for sober living, that's a specialty. Hospital affiliated stay could be somebody coming out of detox at the hospital, or maybe they were in a car accident and they don't have any family, or maybe they're elderly and they don't have any family and they've lost everything or they never had anything to begin with. And then you might have some people that say they need double occupancy, a husband and a wife, for example. We did very early on turn down a couple because the wife had a back surgery and she was laid up for quite a long time. Her husband could pay, but of course they wanted to stay together. A lot of homeless people want to stay together too. And children, maybe 18 years old, right? Brother and sister, maybe they want to stay together. So that's something to consider. And then maybe there's a single father, single mother, and they have a child in tow. So that's important to know. When are they looking to move in? How long do they want to stay? It is really important for you guys to identify if your house is going to be used for a 1-month term, a 3-month term, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, or even longer. And so the reason that's important is because when it comes to getting funding, they're going to want to know what is your length of stay. And that will dictate what kind of funding they have for you. So if you are willing to take people in for just a couple days while they go and try and find them more longer term house, a longer term house, excuse me, then you'll get a different kind of funding. If you're going to do permanent shared housing, which would be around a year, it's like a 12-month lease, but it's not a lease. In our case, we don't write up the lease. We just do the shelter agreement, or we call it a housing agreement. Essentially, what you would be looking at is making that very clear. And so on our website, we have our length of stay is between 1 week up to 2 years. We know that hospital to housing will provide funding for up to 2 years. I know that that length of stay can be problematic for some grant providers. However, again, we don't want to turn people down. Me personally, as a real estate investor, I invest in land. And so this is a true charity for me. Even though we do raise money, we want to have multiple sources of income and not just rely on government funding, grant funding, or private payers. We want to have multiple sources. So anyways, that's why Katie's House Foundation is able to do things a little bit differently. If you are going to be dependent upon, a certain type of funding, you're going to want to know that. And all of that stems with picking your population first for a particular city that you're operating in. Are you okay with kids in the house? That's good to know. Are you okay with pets in the house? So this is actually the resident, right, applying and saying, I plan to stay for 12 months. I am okay with kids in the house. I'm okay with pets in the house. I'm okay with smoking or vaping. So they're telling us that they're okay. And the reason this is important for us is because, we arbitrage houses. And so what that means is that we have to know if they're bringing a dog or a cat or a bird or something, or if they're okay with pets. So that way we can match residents. I know that this may sound like quite a bit of work, but remember that you're being compensated appropriately for this extra work, or your property manager is compensated appropriately, hopefully in the way that things will be made easy for her. And if she's only filling one house, or he, then they'll focus on one house at a time. Or if you have 2 houses at a time, that would be helpful too. Maybe you have a woman's house and a men's house, and then you can still do fair housing. And maybe if you're arbitraging, one of those houses allows for pets, but the other one doesn't. So you'll have to keep an Excel spreadsheet of your houses if that's the case. Most homeless people are going to want to bring their pet if they have one. And so if you're dealing with people who, if your goal is to work with the homeless population and work with the mayor and the police, you might want to have houses that are okay with pets, and you might want to have insurance that is okay with pets and charge for that kind of thing, right? So be thinking about this stuff. If you had your husband and wife, or I'm sorry, husband, wife, or significant other, and you guys had a dog, and let's say that the world came crashing down on you and you were looking for a place, it would be great if you could take your dog with you. Okay, moving on. So I will tell you, to date, we have not had anybody say that they were not okay with children or pets or smoking, except for, I think there was one outlier. Somebody, I think at some point did, and I just happened to notice that because that was a little bit odd. He didn't end up moving in to any of our, open beds. Who will pay for your housing? This is really important. You want to know who's going to pay for it. Uh, so I'll pay for myself. Family will pay for me. A case manager will pay. Can you provide verification of income for one time the rent and utilities? That's what we ask for at Katie's House Foundation, versus we know that generally people have to provide 3 times the rent and utilities, which most people don't have a 33% debt to income ratio, guys. They just don't. This is why there's a housing insecurity and an affordability issue. So anyhow, what are you gonna need documentation-wise to verify this person? Do you need an ID, or are you okay with the social worker or city lawyer or city attorney, or I'm sorry, city judge or somebody, police officer verifying who they are and they have no documentation for who they are? Like, other than they've always been in the system and those social workers can verify who they are, maybe even from birth. Or you might have immigrants who have no ID. Maybe they don't even speak English, and you want to help refugees. And so this is the stuff that you're looking for is who are you going to help? What kind of documentation are they going to give you that you are okay with? And who's going to be checking on those individuals living in the house? The property manager is only responsible for collecting this information and then approving them to move in and then passing them off to the house president. Or if you don't have a house president yet, then you could intake someone. Your property manager could intake them to the house just like a normal long-term rental. Okay, income, right? Where's their income coming from? We don't even ask where they work because we're asking for a pay stub or proof of income. And so we're going to find out, of course, if they work for the local grocery store that way or Social Security. Have you used illegal drugs in the last 6 months? Drug of choice, background history, because our insurance, our particular insurance doesn't allow for violent crime, sexual misconduct, or arson. It doesn't allow for housing as a condition of parole. Do you need help with bed bugs, lice, or other bugs before you move in? Do you have any charges pending? We ask where, what kind, date of last jail release. A lot of this stuff is public information, but you're going to want to line this up with your background check if you run a formal background check. Can you afford the room rent and your other obligations? Are you working with any other organizations or a case manager? References. So we get at least one reference. In the beginning, we were calling on these. We don't necessarily need to call on them anymore because we just 100% of the time do a formal background check, which includes a case manager, basically vouching for them, which would be their reference. So it's going to be, for us, it's one or the other. Either a formal background check, which, they're going to run a bunch of reference stuff, or they're going to have a case manager who is their reference. We ask for an emergency contact. Of course, you'll want to have that in case they go MIA or something really does happen, like a medical emergency. What does a perfect roommate situation look like to you? So this is our main question. Are you firmly against sharing a room, and what are you bringing? Most people are going to want a room to themselves. It is up to you to decide if you are going to be okay with that or not be okay with that. We find that we have a mix of both. So if we can work it out and make enough to make sure that the operation is stable, then maybe not everyone has to share a room, but we want to know if they're firmly against it. And then we, of course, have our certification that we can do a background check and that we can report to the credit agencies if they don't pay us, and then that the houses may fall under the Federal Anti-Drug Abuse Act, in which case, the same landlord-tenant laws would not apply and they can be removed from the property immediately for non-payment, for using drugs and alcohol, for things of these nature. I mean, it's a pretty long thing to read through. I sent it to you guys earlier in the class. You guys can read it. And Julie, who is our, court liaison and our police officer here at Katie's House Foundation, meaning that she's actually a police officer in Illinois, but she's on our committee. She has been very clear that we need to make sure that the local police, are aware of our locations and what those locations are doing because they are social services locations. And that way, when they go to the house, if there's an incident, they already know what's going on there and that it is, a sober living facility or some other kind of facility where the individuals don't have a lease and they can be removed from the property if they're breaking the rules, right? Most people will leave anyway if they're breaking the rules. So this is our background check provider. It's Background Info USA. You guys can set up an account with them, and then you can order background checks for $27 is what we pay on average. Sometimes, depending on the state and the county, they will run additional checks, and it might come out to, it could be as much as $75 for a check, depending on the state that you're in. So we charge $41.99 for a background check. And let me show you on our website here, right? You need to be able to collect payment, or your property manager needs to be able to collect payment. And on our website, we ask them to go ahead and pay on our website for the background check. And once that hits our account, then our property manager goes to the Background Info USA and orders that up. And that normally comes back the next day. That was the vendor recommended by our nonprofit insurance, which is why I'm also letting you guys know about it. As it relates to actually bringing somebody into the house, there's the background check first. Actually, it's the application first, then the background check, then they put down a deposit to hold the room or the bed, which normally will go, we've held one up to 2 weeks before, but I prefer not to do that. We do have people that will apply and they want us to hold it for up to 8 weeks. And we tell them, sorry, please contact us back. Probably within 2 weeks of your move-in date would be good. This on our website, people pay different amounts depending on if they're have a child in tow or if they want a single room, utilities, things of this nature, where the house is located. And so that's why we have a flex pay option. And then utility share is kind of the same thing. This is our educational stuff shared by Katie's House Foundation. Let's go ahead and get into the FAQs for the application because I think it's really important that you guys watch this. And then we might have time to go over the checklist that relates to a broad population versus the sober living. So in the sober living, remember, we actually had somebody who was going to do a drug test when a person showed up. But right now, what we're talking about is people who don't want or need to do a drug test when they show up. This is a lot more, this is easier, right? This is a lot easier because there's no drug testing involved when they show up. So nobody's having to urinate in a cup or blow in a breathalyzer. And there's a lot more people who want to come and stay at your housing. So how do you answer all of their questions? Well, we did a Q&A with our property manager, and here it is. Hi, everyone. My name is Kirsten Vanderjack, and I'm the founder and CEO of Katie's House Foundation, a housing nonprofit. And we offer affordable shared housing to people who are just starting out, starting over, or on a fixed income. And so I am here with the fabulous Rolathea Scott. Hi, Ro. How are you today?
Hi, I'm doing great. How are you today?
I'm very well. Thank you. Thank you for joining me for this Q&A session.
Yes, ma'am. I'm glad to be here.
We are so happy that you help us in Birmingham, Alabama, and some of the surrounding areas as we continue to look to lease more houses or buy more houses. And we wanted to do this Q&A video with you so that way you can answer the most frequently asked questions, for people who are applying to Katie's House Foundation, and then also maybe their case managers, if they are looking and wondering, what is this application process like to get
Yeah,
somebody from the point of online application to when do they actually get into the house?
definitely. Yes, ma'am. Well, we can definitely get right into that.
Okay, so we will put this Q&A on our more section of the website. Let's go ahead and get started.
Okay.
Question number 1 is, how do I apply for a private room or a shared room with Katie's House Foundation?
Yes, ma'am. So the best way to apply would be to go to our website, which would be katieshousefoundation.org, and you'll click apply now.
Okay, great. And does Katie's House Foundation offer a free housing application? And what is included?
Yes, ma'am. The application is free. Your application will be reviewed by a licensed agent, and you'll have a short interview process. The agent will also be able to show you the house, and will review your verification documents once everything is sent over.
Okay, great. And let's say that I'm the applicant. If
Right.
I like the house, or maybe I'm a case manager, a placement officer, if I like the house based on either the video that I look at or the photos, or if you show it to me in person, and then also if I like the location, because I know location, although we don't tend to give out the address in some cases, the zip code, right, could be important, or maybe just the block.
Definitely.
So if I drive down the street and I just like the street and the area and anything else that you share with me, what is the next step?
Yes, the next step would, if you haven't already put in your application, then the next step after that would be to go ahead and do your background check.
Okay. Is there a cost for a background check?
Yes, you pay about $42 for the background check. You'll get an email from the background company to process that. Or if you don't have the $42 and you're working with the case manager, you can ask them to contact the licensed agent that's working with Katie's house, which would be me right now. And you'll be able to provide your documents for that background check.
Okay, great. So, basically, if I'm working with a nonprofit who, I went to them or somehow I ended up working with them because maybe I didn't have money and they have either a veterans program or aged out foster care or drug court or even, human trafficking or something like that. If I have a case manager there, a probation officer, somebody, what you're telling me is that instead of me having to pay the $42 for a background check and then wait a few days for that to come back, my person at this nonprofit or the government, they can give you a call and then send you over like my background information.
Right, definitely.
Okay, great. And after the background check is taken care of either through the $42 outside company or through a case manager sending over some documents, what's the next step?
After that, you'll receive an email over asking for a valid ID and for you to verify your income to cover 30 days of rent and utilities. If your case manager is paying for you, the email will be sent to them, and you'll be able to be included on that email.
Okay, awesome. And what documents do you or Katie's House Foundation actually need to verify my identity and my income?
So a valid ID, and then of course paycheck stubs that can verify your income.
Okay, and if I'm on fixed income, would a Social Security award letter work?
Award letter, yes.
And if I'm self-employed and maybe I don't know why my boss would pay me cash, but could I maybe just give you my bank
Bank
statement to show
statements,
the deposits going in?
definitely.
Okay. And then if it is going to be a case manager or a nonprofit or some type of a government contract, would they just basically have an agreement with you which says how long they're going to pay for me?
Exactly.
Okay, wonderful. And what if I have bad credit when I do my application?
Bad credit is fine. We actually don't do pull a credit report.
Oh, great. Okay. And what happens after the background check and my documents going over to you?
Yes, so after all of that is completed, you'll be asked to sign house agreements via email and go ahead and pay your move-in costs, which you can do on the website, Katie's Foundation, katieshousefoundation.org, and it's under the pay tab.
Okay, great. And if someone else is paying for me, do you guys just invoice them or you guys already worked that out, right?
Yes, we'll send them an invoice.
Okay, wonderful. And how much does it cost to live at one of these locations or at Katie's house?
Yes, so it's usually a $100 refundable deposit plus your first week's rent, and your monthly utility, which is shared, is usually around 150 per week, depending on where the house is located. And you can also pay by the month.
Okay, great. And how long does it take from the point that I go on the website at katieshousefoundation.org and I fill that out, which takes about 5 minutes for the application, and then I talk with you, the documents go over to you, and when do I actually get to move into the house?
Yeah, so once all of that is completed, it normally takes about 5 to 7 business days, including the application process, background check, and you paying your funds.
Okay. Now, what if my nonprofit or my government entity already has a relationship? Would that be where they could send over this stuff? Let's say I do my application today,
Hmm.
and then they call you and they say, hey, so and so just sent over their application. I want to email over to you, Ro, all of their background documents or even
Hmm.
some of it to vouch for who they are and then their ID, and they're not going to pay for themselves. We actually are going to pay for them for 3 months or maybe even up to 12 months or 2 years. And here's the verification of that. Can they move in tomorrow if all of that's done?
Yeah, definitely. The quicker we get documents, and especially if we already have an established relationship, we can definitely get you in much quicker than the 5 to 7 business days.
Awesome. I love that. So we want people to be able to get in quickly.
Mhm.
And what can I bring with me to the house?
Important documents, personal care items like shampoo, clothes for about 7 to 10 days, a few pair of shoes, prescriptions, some money, and your electronics.
Okay, so if I am prescribed medication, it's okay for me to bring that as long as I have a prescription.
Exactly.
Okay. And, I'll keep it in my bottle so I know that that's the right medicine. And are there any type of personal safes or locks on the doors on the inside?
Yes. Yes, definitely. So there is a outside door lock as well as a door. You can lock your room door, and we do have personal safes.
Okay, wonderful. And what are some things that I should not bring?
Furniture, until after you've seen the space that we have allotted. Personal heaters, non-prescription, alcohol or drugs, weapons, or anything known to carry bugs.
Okay. Yeah, so that's an important one, right? Because personal
Hmm.
heaters, frying, like turkey
Hmm.
fryers,
Yeah, none of
things
that.
that
That can
could,
be hazardous.
yeah. So, and then furniture, most of the houses, do they already have furniture?
Yes. Uh huh.
Okay,
Yes.
and how many refrigerators do you guys normally have in a house?
Normally too.
Okay, great. And then who oversees the house once I move in? And are there any support services?
Okay, yes. So there is a house president and a licensed agent assigned to each house, that will oversee everything. You'll need to have your own transportation or use the bus line and Google to obtain outside support services, which are usually plentiful in the area. That's definitely true within the Birmingham area. Then there are also financial literacy classes that are offered for free when you live at Katie's house, so you can learn how to increase your income, get a car, or go to school, build and fix your credit, and work towards purchasing your own home in a few years.
Wow, that's great. And if I stay at Katie's house for, let's say, just 2 years, would I be able to work with you to maybe look for a house in the neighborhood?
Yes, definitely. So I am a licensed agent in the state of Alabama with Posh Realty Company. So I could definitely help you make that next step.
Okay, that's exciting. I have a lot, if I were an applicant, I would have a lot to work on, and maybe I'm not ready for that yet, but it's really good to
Yes.
know that if I
Yep.
get myself ready, while I'm living at the house,
Hmm.
then hopefully you can help me with that.
Exactly. Definitely.
And then what if I just want to lease a place? What if I'm not ready to purchase in a year or
I
two?
Yep, I can totally help with that as well. I do renting, leasing, buying, selling. So I
Okay,
can help with all of it.
that's great. So I can move from this, basically easy entry,
Hmm.
beautiful housing, and it's affordable. And then once I get my income, maybe better, and I'm making more income and maybe my
Right.
credit's a little bit better, then you can help me get into a longer term lease kind of a situation or buy
Exactly.
a house.
Exactly. Sure
I
can.
love that.
Yep.
Okay. And what happens, when I'm living at the house? I understand these are shared houses,
Mhm.
so there are a couple roommates there. What happens if they don't pay their rent or their utility bill? Does my rent and my utility bill go up?
No. So if someone does not follow their house agreements or pay their share of the rent and utilities on time without some type of communication to the foundation, they're emailed a 7-day notice. And after 7 days, their items will be removed and security code will be changed. So it does not affect you in any kind of way.
Okay, that's really good to know because I know there are other types of things that are popping up, but then, maybe they increase the rent on me or the
Right.
utilities on me because two other people didn't pay their share, and that
Yeah.
doesn't seem fair.
Yeah. No, not in this situation.
Okay. And does Katie's House Foundation offer a long-term lease?
So if you have good credit, 2 years on the job and make 3 times the rent, or you have a grant that pays for you, you may qualify for a standard lease under one of our LLCs. If you don't meet any of those qualifications yet, you would fall under Public Law 100-690 and housing laws related to a nonprofit house. Ooh, I messed it up.
That's
I
okay.
messed it
Okay,
up.
so
I was trying to read all of that.
let's okay, so we're gonna smile
Okay.
and then I'm gonna ask you number 14 again.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay.
I was trying to read fast.
Yeah. Does Katie's House Foundation offer a long-term lease?
So yes, so if you have good credit, 2 years on the job and make 3 times the rent, or you have a grant that pays for you, you may qualify for a standard lease under one of our LLCs. If you do not meet those qualifications yet, you will fall under Public Law 100-690 and housing laws related to a nonprofit halfway house shelter. By applying and signing the house agreement, you are accepting these terms, which are different from the normal process afforded to someone by local landlord tenant laws.
Okay, so it sounds like there's two different things. Um,
Definitely.
if I have, let's say, a veterans organization
Mhm.
who is willing to pay for me and I'm looking for a 1-year lease and I,
Mhm.
know that that funding is there and that foundation or nonprofit or government provides it, then you will give me a lease for 1 year, let's say for one bedroom.
Right. Hmm.
Okay, because they're paying for me, and so I
Right.
still have to
Exactly.
agree to the house rules that I'm going
Hmm.
to keep my house nice and be respectful, but because
Exactly.
they're paying for, let's say, 1 year, you'll do a
Hmm.
1-year lease underneath, like, normal landlord-tenant protections, correct?
Right. Exactly.
Okay, now if I don't have good credit and if I don't have a solid job, and most times I know that they require 3 times
Hmm.
your rent. So if I'm going to pay $1,000, I would have to be making $3,000 in order to
Right.
qualify. Versus at Katie's house, if I'm going to pay, $500 or $600, I only have to verify $500 or $600 instead of 3 times that. And so
Exactly.
what you're telling me is that Katie's House Foundation, as a nonprofit, they are able to offer me more like a shelter kind of, right? And
Exactly.
so it's not a long-term lease. It's basically I can come and go. So
Mhm.
if I can't pay, then I can just leave.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And who is not able to stay at a Katie's house?
Yes, so we are unable to house anyone with violent crimes, sexual misconduct, arson, or housing as a condition of parole.
Okay. And so that actually makes me feel better as somebody who's going to live there because I know that the houses, and the insurance may be related to that for the foundation, they, have this background type of a thing because the houses are really intended for people who, haven't had arson or haven't had sexual misconduct or, you know, violent offenses like
Mm-hmm.
something very violent, or housing as a condition of their parole. So, unlike some other rooms where they don't do background checks at all, I don't,
Mm-hmm.
in those cases, I would have no idea who I'm living with.
Right, exactly.
So I like that you guys do have that. And why would I want to stay at a Katie's House Foundation location?
Yeah, so there are actually a few good reasons why you would want to stay at a Katie's house. Um, it is much easier to get into one of our houses than a standard apartment, and it's less expensive, especially than an Airbnb or a hotel. And it's a lot nicer and safer than a public shelter or a hospital. Usually, the house is on a nice street and there's a yard. Pets may be allowed and children may be able to stay with their parents or guardian in the same room for privacy. We also offer financial literacy classes so residents can obtain documentation, education, employment, and build credit and eventually transition out with confidence into their own permanent housing when ready. In the shelter agreement, you may stay for a week or up to 2 years. Feel free to leave at any time, but we do appreciate a 7-day courtesy.
Okay, wow. So I heard you say in there that pets might be allowed. So does
Definitely.
that just mean that depending on where the house is and maybe the other roommates, you
Right.
kind of have to consider if I have a cat or a dog or a bird or something?
Yes, definitely. So we do consider both of those things when we consider pets.
Okay. And then you mentioned that children might be allowed with their guardian or their parent. And so does that mean that, if I am currently living in my car and I have my daughter or my son with me, that I can come and I can actually stay, they can stay with me, right, in the room with
All
me?
right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great.
Yep.
And then are you gonna, when we go through the application process, you'll just let me know the additional costs for that because there are extra utilities involved with that?
Exactly.
How many people are going to live in the house with me?
Yes, so there's usually about 1 to 2 people in each bedroom who all have a similar agreement and are focused on improving their lives and appreciate living in a great school district or on a great street, away from previous places, where they may have been experiencing, kind of conditions that they really didn't want to live in.
Okay. So it sounds like, maybe even though I share a beautiful house, I get to go, like if I did have my child, they could go to a different school district,
Mhm.
or if I have always lived maybe in a place that like a one bedroom apartment or my
Okay.
some like maybe an environment that was not a great neighborhood,
Mhm.
and there was people selling drugs or things going on there that I don't want to be really in that environment anymore.
All
So what
right.
you're telling me is that I get to move into a shared house with, you said, one or two other people in each room,
All right. Mm-hmm.
and and that's going to be in a nice, on a nice street basically.
Exactly. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then are these nice houses? How many bedrooms are normally in a house?
Normally about 4.
Okay, awesome. And anything else that you would like to share or tell us about yourself, Roletha, as to why do you do this and help Katie's House Foundation?
Yeah, so again, I am Rolethea Scott. I have been in the Birmingham area for about 11 years, and I've been in real estate for about 3 years. What brought me to Katie's Foundation is just the mission. I am really big on homelessness, on helping out with homelessness. I've done some volunteer work with Pathways, and that's really how I got into finding out how many homeless people there were in Birmingham. And I think everybody should have a place to stay there. I can't imagine um, going through something like that, and anything that I can do to help, I'm here. That's why I'm here. It is just refreshing that Katie's Foundation has found its way to Birmingham and is able to provide shared living spaces, safe shared living spaces for individuals. And I hope that we grow and just continue to fight this all throughout Birmingham, and even in other places if we're allowed to.
Well, thank you so much for what you do to help Katie's House Foundation. We really, really appreciate you. And
Definitely.
you are really Johnny on the spot to help the House presidents and also the people that are applying. So uh,
Definitely.
thank you so much for what you do. And we'll be talking with you really soon.
Yes, ma'am. It was good speaking with you. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out at any time. I'm literally always available.
Okay. Well, have a great day.
Thanks. You too. Bye bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, everyone. Well, I hope that you enjoyed that video by me and Rolethea answering the frequently asked questions. It's really helpful if you create a video to put on your website or on some kind of medium that you or your property manager can direct people to, so that way you're not having to answer questions about your application and your move-in process frequently. Moving on to what would otherwise be called the welcome agreement for the general population. So this is not for sober living. This is everyone else outside of sober living. Once they are approved and they've made their payments for the first week, our property manager will have this completed. She'll complete this herself and she will send it over to them for signature on DocuSign. So I will include this for you guys. And you can see that it is a simplified version of the sober living house rules. Most of which, these last couple pages, are actually directly off of our website. Now I'd like to show you the checklist that the property manager does when she moves somebody into the house that's unrelated to sober living, or it is not a intensive sober living. So meaning that the house does have people who are sober, but you're not having to do drug testing. Or you're not having a program, sober living program inside of the house for the drug court, for example. And so this would be what I would call general population, where they may or may not be sober, but there's no drug testing. And so what the property manager will do is she'll actually complete this application checklist to make sure that she doesn't miss anything, on ordering the background check and so forth, checking documentation. Then when she moves them in, she'll do a move-in inspection a couple days ahead. Right? She'll get the safe codes because we have a couple different key codes that need to be set up. This is rent reconciliation. This is really important for a property manager to have, that says when the bed, what its due dates are. So, and what the bed rent is. So if you're charging $150 or $200 per week, then you can put that in here, or he or she can put that in there. And then, of course, this is how they can keep track of that. There are systems to keep track of sober living and shelter housing and different kinds of houses. If you have one, go ahead and use it. I personally like Excel spreadsheets, and they're faster for me than a complicated, software system that I have to pay hundreds of dollars for. But do what works for you and your operation. And I actually real quick on that note, I do know of a couple softwares that we just have not embraced quite yet. In one of my previous companies, we paid a lot of money and we tried all different kinds of things. I will share those softwares and you guys can check into them, but I can't say anything because we don't use them yet. With regard to moving out, so if somebody's moved out, right, you want to have a record of this. And then if you give them or the property manager gives them any warnings, you would want to detail those. A lot of this has to do with insurance because when you're working with at-risk populations, you need to keep track of what's happening with those individuals, and especially if you're getting funding in some way. And the last thing that I'd like to show you in today's class is the notice to pay or quit. This is the document that goes out to the resident if they are behind in their bed rent, and the property manager would send it out. There are a few very important things when someone is exiting your housing that you need to document. And so let's go over this particular document with regard to the modifications that you might want to make. Number one, you'll probably need your property manager to change the code specific to your state. Also, you'll want to make sure that it's called a housing agreement and not a lease agreement unless you're issuing a standard lease under your nonprofit, if that's the insurance that you want to be applicable to that lease. And then also, with regard to the number of days that they have to pay or quit, or you could also call it pay or exit, you would want to make sure that it is state specific. And so if you have a lease, maybe you're doing a weekly lease and then the state requires a 7-day notice, you have to make sure to look up these things or have your licensed property manager look into them for you. In addition to that, when somebody exits your house and it's not a sober living facility, there are a few things to check out. Number one would be Americans with Disabilities Act. And so if they're in a wheelchair or they have a disability or they're on medically assisted treatment, they might need more days to find another place to live. And so you would be required to give them a certain number of days based on those items. And in addition to that, when somebody moves out, you always need to make sure to immediately change your security code. So don't forget to do that. And if they leave anything behind, you'll want to have your maintenance crew come in and pack up their belongings and then put that outside or maybe in the basement or somewhere for safe keeping for them to come and pick it up for a certain number of days. Again, you'll want to look at that for your state and see how many days you have to hold their belongings. And then you can go ahead and donate those items to the church. Of course, you can send out an email, a text message, and leave a voicemail for the resident and or their emergency contact. And you could ask the church, to hold those items for that person to come and get. However, the church might, trash them or sell them. And so you wouldn't be responsible for that. Essentially, you're not a storage facility and you can't hold somebody's belongings forever. Thank you for listening in to class number 9, and I look forward to talking with you in class number 10.